Hey guys, this is Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and we're looking at the knife in this pouch today. This is not a budget knife, not by any stretch of the imagination, unless you're a multimillionaire, I guess. Inside this nice pouch, you've got lacing on one side, you've got MOLLE type webbing on the other side, a nice big zipper here, and inside you've got this. Have you seen this before on my channel? Well, yes. But I've not reviewed this, at least not this model. This has got some specialness to it that I've never had on any knife in my life. And we'll talk about that. The funny thing is, this knife is the knife that's listed at GearBest as the mini of this series. That designation should be for this one. Now, I did a review of this guy recently, and it's not listed as the mini. That's actually listed as the HX Outdoors ZD-005A. ZD-005A, and you're going to get this little guy. S35 VN steel, titanium handle, really nice. This one doesn't have a model number on it. There's no model number on the knife anywhere, but it's called the HX Outdoors blah blah mini. And it's not mini at all. It's pretty big. They have this same size knife, exactly the same size knife, different steel, different handle, called the ZD-006. And it comes with S35 VN steel and a titanium handle. This has got different steel, different handle. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then they've got a fourth version of this. And this is where I didn't have it clear in my mind until this video. They've got another version that has a 3-inch blade. So just under 3 inch, 7.5 centimeter blade. I think you need 7.6 to be 3 inches. And so it's just small enough to be legal where people have to have blades that are 3 inches. I'm going to be asking my rep at GearBest to get me one of those, because I've got somebody in mind who lives in a place where they've got a stupid 3-inch law, and I'd really like to get that for him because this is an awesome knife. And although this one would be legal there, something that's 3 inches of this size would be much more reasonable, I think. And the one that's 3 inches is the one that comes in blue handle or black or satin. So it's the only one that has the blue handle option. So there you go. That's a slight overview of the different variances. So now what we're going to do is get to the tabletop mode, and we'll take a close look at this guy and what makes him special. This is the most expensive one of the bunch. So not a budget knife, but a nice knife. And I think you might be interested, so stick around. First off, the sheath. I did a review of the all steel version of this. Steel handle, steel blade, S35 VN. Oh, I don't know, almost a year ago. And then I did the little guy last week or so. But now we've got this one. We've got M390 steel. And that's a good thing. Knife Informer calls M390 as part of the ultra premium steels, like the top of the list of steels. It's M390s in that list. Whereas steel like S35 VN for them is in the premium list, so lower than this. Everybody in the steel world, in the knife world, you know, if they're thinking about premium steels, high-end steels, they've got their own differences of opinion and slight variances and all that stuff. But M390 is regarded by all of them as a very, very good steel. Exactly where they place it, well, that will vary. Now, I do believe this is M390 steel. Every steel that I've tested from HX Outdoors has seemed to me to be exactly what they call it to be. And now that I've heard from RIKE Knives, RIKE Knives has a knife that looks almost exactly like this, and they call it the Thor 3. And I emailed RIKE Knives and asked them, what's up with HX Outdoors making a knife that looks just like yours? And they said, well, Richard Wu, the designer, has been working with both RIKE and HX Outdoors, and RIKE and HX Outdoors have also been combining together, to work on this knife. And so it's totally legit that HX Outdoors has this exact same looking knife as RIKE does, called the Thor 3. And so I've got an email directly from RIKE Knives saying that. And so I'm very happy to be able to share this knife with you, knowing that it's not a ripoff of some other company. But this one, M390, we've got something special on the handle. I've never had a knife that has silicon carbide handle. That's the steel that we have here. And my son went to mine engineer degree. He's got a mining engineer degree. He doesn't have his official engineer status yet. He has to work for a little bit longer in the mining industry to get his official status as an engineer. But he said they worked with silicon carbide, and they did tests with it, and they were using it in mine tests for using it as drill heads for mining into rock and stuff. And he says this is exactly how it looks with this kind of what's the name for this? Well, you can see the tiny grains in there. He said you can see those grains. You can feel those grains with your hand just a little bit. It's got quite the texture on it. One of the main features of silicon carbide is how abrasive it is, which is why they were using it on rock drills. So it's got this nice, really sort of textured look, and that does create a good grip in the hand. This thing's got supreme grippiness without being aggressive. And then you've got these milled lines in here, which help out as well. So you get a really good feel in the hand without being overly aggressive. So I like that an awful lot. You get a bit of a ramp up here with some jimping. So a bit of a thumb ramp, and it's chamfered on the inside, so your thumb rests in there, and it's got that scooped out shape. So very good hand feel for this knife. By the way, my hands are large, bordering on extra large in North American sizes. That's between 10 and 11 in European sizes. So very comfortable holding the handle this way, or you got the sneak up choil, which fits my hand very well, and it's safe to stay away from that cutting edge right there, as you can see. And so your thumb can be up here or back here. And this knife is comfortable in just about any kind of grip. You see the handle right there. So a reverse grip, very comfortable. And I've got room to choke up if I wanted to. Lots of room for bigger hands, and yet it's comfortable enough for smaller hands. We've got, these holes that are put into the handle. They go all the way through, as you can see there. That helps to lighten it up, not very heavy. You've got a back spacer that also has relief cuts in it, so that you can look right through it that way. Very well designed knife. And then you've got one back screw that holds this together, and then there's a pin up here, but there's no other screws other than the pivot. So one screw there and one pivot screw there. And that brings me to my only fairly big, not that big, but negative about this knife. Both of these are free turning posts. So the pivot screw is a free turning one, and these back here, the one that goes all the way through, is a free turning post as well. On the pivot, it wasn't a problem. I loosened up the pivot screw when I wanted to take it apart to see the insides and take pictures to show you. No problem. It come apart just fine. And I put it back together, took it apart again a few times just to see if that freewheeling issue would become a problem. And it just doesn't on this one. But back here it did. I needed to put this into a clamping system and put a screwdriver in one side and then loosen the other one. Otherwise it was going to spin along. And that's a little bit frustrating. So, and because initially it was on there quite tight, I'm very glad I had my drive grip, and that helped me not to strip out either of these screws here. I didn't try to take out the screw for the lock bar insert, because that's, a steel lock bar insert right there, and that's a good thing. Let's take a picture. Oh, I took the picture. Let's show you the pictures of the inside right now. And what you're going to see when you look at the inside, you're going to see that there's race rings because we've got ceramic ball bearings. And so they need hard race rings for the ball bearings to roll on either the race rings, and then on the other side, they roll on the M390 steel. So take a look at the pictures. Okay, so you see all the things in there. The bearings, again, ceramic, and everything's good. The detent ball on the lock bar insert, that's also ceramic. And for a folding knife, you don't really need lubrication on the ball bearings. There's a lot of hoopla going on, or hype going on right now about ball bearings, if they're ceramic, if they need lubrication or not. Technically, it's always good to put lubrication on your ball bearings. But on a folding knife where there's no, intense loads, ceramic ball bearings don't need lubrication. But they're a little bit quieter sometimes if there's lubrication. This knife, you can hear the ball bearings, at least I did when I first got it. And so I put in some very light lubrication, and now it sounds better than it did before. But this knife opens and closes very well. It just falls closed. Pivot just flies open, and it just wants to be closed. Really good detent on here to hold it closed when it's supposed to be closed. Flipper tab's got some jimping on it right there. So that's a good thing. Nice big stop pin. You've got some chamfering on the spine of the blade right there. Nice and thick. Comes to a nice strong tip. This has the factory edge on it. The factory edge on this was ground very, very well, unlike some knives that I've seen these days. But it should be when you've got a knife that is as expensive as this one is. And so that's a really good thing that it's done very well. Everything is machined very good, looks good, feels good in the hand. And as far as that goes, it's just an awesome, awesome knife. Let's make sure we go over everything. I'm going to read through my list. M390 steel, Rockwell, I didn't tell you that. Rockwell hardness between 60 and 62. So I'll just say Rockwell of 61. We've got a satin blade, silicon carbide handle, drop point blade, because we've got this nice rounded drop point right there. 2-edge blade, flipper to open it, back spacer, a saber grind, which is this flat grind. It's not a full flat grind because, it doesn't come all the way to the top there, but it's quite nice. Ceramic ball bearings, frame lock, and the lockup is very good on this. I'll give you some close-up pictures too, but there's the lockup. Very good. No blade play, side to side, up and down, nice and snug, no problems. Pocket clip is right side tip up only. You can't bring it to the other side. It is right there, and it's a milled out silicon carbide pocket clip. Very functional. The edge that your pants roll over, that's sort of made round. Can't quite see it in the picture that I have, but I'll show you a picture of that. The alignment when it's closed, ta-da, perfect. Right down the middle. Really, really nice knife. Let's do the sizes now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for that. Okay, the first thing we're doing is the cutting edge. So that's from right there to the tip of the blade, 9 centimeters, 3.54 inches. Blade length, so from the tip of the handle to the tip of the blade, 9.66 centimeters, 3.8 inches. The blade thickness is 3.85 millimeters. That's 0.1515 inches. The blade depth, so from the spine to the cutting edge, it's the largest right here, and it keeps getting smaller. Blade depth is 3.39 centimeters, 1.33 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, so that little slight shiny edge you see there, how thick is the steel just before it gets onto this flat bevel? 0.43 millimeters, which is 0.0165 inches. Awesome. M390 can easily handle that thinness of an edge all day long. You wouldn't want it any thicker. A nice and thin edge. It's durable because of the M390. It keeps its edge for quite a long time. Very wear resistant, tough, great edge. This is the thing that makes me love this knife so very much. How thin it is and how great that grind is right there. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, now let's talk about the handle. So the handle length is 12.7 centimeters, 5 inches on the nose. The grip area, so inside here to where my thumbnail is 10.5 centimeters, 4.13 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, is 1.3 centimeters. That's 0.512. So basically half an inch plus a tiny hair. And then the handle depth, kind of like the blade depth, the handle depth is largest right there. 2.8 centimeters, 1.1 inch. And how long is this knife when the blade is deployed? We're talking 22.35 centimeters, 8.8 inches. So it's a big knife. It's very proportional. The blade length compared to the handle length is beautiful, very good proportions. And the weight of this knife, 152 grams, 5.35 ounces. Let us talk about the price. If you're going to be buying this from GearBest right now, for 1 week, it is 8% off. Not a huge sale, but every percent is a good percent off. So 8% off right now. This knife is listed at $159.99 US. That equals $211.36 Canadian. It equals 131.97 euros. It equals 116.83 pounds sterling. Not an inexpensive knife. I think that it's worth every penny they're asking for it. But if you're not in the market for something at that price, then it's not a good knife for you. I was very, very fortunate. I got this knife sent to me by GearBest at their cost. And so I appreciate that very much, GearBest. I'm still committed to doing the most objective, clear, honest review I possibly can. My problem with that is I can't come up with negative stuff for this. Well, that's not a problem. Some people expect if you are an honest reviewer, you have to mention a bunch of problems. Well, I just can't find a bunch of problems. There's just some very small ones. One is it makes a little bit of noise when you open it. I'd like it to be a little bit quieter. It was a bit louder before I lubricated the ball bearings. And I mentioned the negative about the spinning free pivots on the end of the handle and at the pivot. But there's not much negative here. I really love this handle. That knocks it out of the park for me. If my family's going to go hungry, I'll sell this thing. But otherwise, I'm keeping this thing. This is a keeper for me. I love this knife. If somebody wanted to offer me way more than retail for it, then I'd consider it. But who's going to do something silly like that? Maybe some Canadian who just doesn't want to risk bringing it across the border with CBSA being the way they are. I don't know. But silicon carbide handle, M390 blade. It's not too heavy for its size. 5.3 ounces, 5.35 ounces, 5.4 ounces, whatever, measurement you see about this thing. That's not a problem for this size of a knife. It's not so big that it's a problem carrying it. I like this gray look because it hides in a pocket very well. I'll show you that in a minute. The blade shape is a very effective cutter shape. We do have a bit of a transition right here because it's one thickness, across the thick edge here, coming to the edge. And then here it starts getting thinner as we get close to the tip. That's this knife. Let's take a look what it looks like in the pocket. When you're wearing the pants, it goes in the pocket easier, but it goes in the pocket quite easily. It's a little more of a challenge on this bench thing. Because of this gray coloring in here, what stands out the most is those little screws, and that's not much at all. So that gray look, it just sort of hides in your pocket, even though you've got over a centimeter sticking out. You got about half an inch sticking out. Not a huge pocket clip either, but it just blends with your pants so well. That's a great thing. I like that an awful lot. Here's just regular paper. You can just hear it. Actually, this is thinner than normal paper, isn't it? We've got some wrinkled up receipt paper. Often when it's wrinkled up, it won't cut very well, just like that other paper was wrinkled. Nice clean cuts on this receipt paper. That's a beautiful thing. And yet it can cut heavy duty stuff like this. We've got some 1/2 inch sisal rope here. And let's see how well it cuts this stuff. No problem all the way through. Very, very nice product here. It's a good rope. A good rope. Yeah, it is a good rope. It's a good knife too. The only other thing I don't like about it is my own personal oils on my hands. Satin blades, it tends to show up a fair bit. If we could take a good look at that handle again, just look at that texture. I'm going to give a close-up picture of that too. To me, it's just extra beautiful. They have 12 of these left. This is a limited edition. As you can see right there by my finger, this is number 048 of 130. So they've only got 130 of these knives with the M390 and the silicone carbide blade. So if that's something that turns your crank, I would go ahead and get these. They're not going to go too terribly quick because the price is up there. You know, $160 US is not, cheap like borscht. There's a lot of people on my channel that are very budget conscious because that's the main theme of my channel. I predominantly do budget reviews. But if I can, if a company like GearBest has some higher end knives, I'm going to jump on them if I possibly can. So here we go. That's this video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Patreon supporters, you guys rock. Remember, people, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.